Welcome to the Holland Smart City House live TV studio at the Metropolitan Solutions Fair 2014 in Hanover, Germany, Hannover Messe. We have a discussion now going on. It's a discussion over Skype between Hanover, here at the stand, the Dutch stand at the Hannover Messe, Beijing and Shanghai in China, and Rotterdam in the Netherlands. The theme is creative industries and city development, Dutch approaches to Chinese urban challenges. My name is Elizabeth Sikiaridi. I'm an architect professor. I will moderate these discussions. The guests that will join in from Beijing, Shanghai and Rotterdam are Yang Li. He's an independent consultant and curator on Smart City. Mr. Ton Verhoeven, Principal of Verhoeven Architect, Mr. Neville Mars, Principal of Mars Architects and founder of the Dynamic City Foundation, Mrs. Lulu Li, co-founder and creative director of Interactive Beijing, Professor Fei Jun, founder and executive director of Interactive Beijing and associate professor at the Media Lab at the Central Academy of Fine Arts Beijing, Professor Frans Voogelaar, Principal of Hybrid Space Lab in Berlin, and Professor at the Academy of Media Arts in Cologne, and Mrs. Christine de Baan from Dutch DFA, and Mrs. Anoushka van Driel, Senior Cultural Affairs Officer at the Dutch Embassy in Beijing. Good morning, or rather good afternoon. It's afternoon in Beijing. The first guest will join is Mr. Yang Li, independent consultant and curator on smart cities. Hello, Li.
Hello. Lisa.
Hello. The first question would be to shortly introduce your background and your activities connected to Chinese urban development and the smart city.
Hello, everyone. This is Yang Li. I'm the curator and organizer for the smart city related subjects in Beijing. I have organized the Smart City exhibition and symposium during the Beijing Design Week for 2 years. So we are going to make a third edition this year in Beijing.
Could you a bit explain us the theme of smart city and its relevant to the very quick urbanizing developments in China today?
Yes, I think first let me give you a very quick and a brief picture about the city development in China. I think the biggest challenge we are facing is the rapid pace of urbanization itself. Because as of now, over 50% of the population has already lived in the cities in China. And it is projected to reach to 70% of the total population by 2030. That you can imagine this 300 millions of people are moving from the rural area to the city. And over 1 billion of people will live in the city by 2030. This will create unprecedented urban challenges and issues. And we are already facing now is like the air pollutions, the traffic congestions, and the water contamination, and the food security issues, and as well as the energy scarcity and water resource scarcity. So, which is pretty scary if you imagine this, if you do not take any actions. So this brings back to our initiative in Beijing and in collaboration with Beijing Design Week, is to call for everyone's attention and awareness to the issues we are facing, not by the issues itself, but as well as going to in-depth understanding of the issues in terms of looking at what we are facing now, and also we discuss and also debate and develop solutions for the future.
So if we understand correctly, smart city is also seen that all the technological approach as an instrument to address sustainability issues of a healthy city, correct?
Yes, I think technology is the very fundamental aspect and dimension of the smart city initiative. And what's missing, and also we like to emphasize, is the humanity angle of the smart city approach. And by doing this, we like to approach both data and design as the strategic tactics, as a connecting tactics to bring all the subjects and areas and disciplines across, and to engage discussions and breakthrough in all these city-related tough issues.
Very interesting. The next guest would be Ton van Hoven. Mr. Ton van Hoven, Dutch architect. Tell us something about your experience within the Chinese context, the projects you're doing, and what do you see as possibilities for Dutch and Chinese collaborations?
I think when we talk about smart cities here in China, I think we have to realize that it is not exactly the same what we are talking about in Europe when we talk about smart cities. In Europe, we consider it as something of the future of the next 10 to 20 years, based on data, ICT, and all those applications. But here it also means that the quality of life in China, the air pollution, the contamination of resources, etc., all these issues have to be resolved. And what my experience is in a project that I've done last year is that there is this, I think, development, a current way of doing urban planning in China, which is still quite centralistic. It's the planned economy, and where every aspect, like mobility planning or agriculture planning or environmental investments, are separated from each other. And I think what is needed is to integrate all these different aspects in urban planning.
Our next guest is Professor Fei Jun from Interactive Beijing and Central Academy of Fine Arts. Hello, Fei Jun. Could you shortly introduce Interactive Beijing? It's not the traditional urban planning and development actor. It comes from the creative industries. What is your very special approach in Interactive Beijing?
So basically, Interactive Beijing is defined as an innovation platform that really takes on the most relevant social issues. And for example, air pollution, and that's something we did in last year. And so it's really a platform that attracts new talents from a design background, art background, engineering background, and even hackers. Try to use this platform to elevating this kind of new collectivism, and really with small teams that we can actually building a prototype that probably can make a positive change to society. So that's kind of the goal of this platform. At the same time, we're running workshops, hackathons, competitions, and also membership camp. Really help those young startups really to realize the ideas from concept to the product. So that's kind of our platform. And so give you a kind of example, like 2013, we run the whole program under the thing called Our Air, Our Responsibility.
Yeah.
So it's trying to attract creatives together to really try to define the solutions. And we find out combining design and also technology together, really hands-on building a prototype that can be used for the social enterprises. And also we as a team we're also doing research as a program as well. We did one project called Eco Air Bubble, which is using human power and team machine to generate electricity that can also using that power to the higher purified system. Also, example like this, and also extend last year's theme, more focus on air into this year's theme for our power, and so dealing with a smart citizen and try to using and the whole we call a smart green rule to link all technology really makes sense and with technology. I mean, part of this, we think, we have so much. I think that the whole world is putting too much attention to technology, smart technology. At the same time, we think that smart citizen is probably more important from our perspective. So we start to emphasize more on the human side.
Yeah.
What is this kind of smart city? Really change people's lifestyle. How the citizen actually engage with the smart city. So that's kind of turning our user focus. Do we have anything to?
Yeah, we understand that your approach is very much based on involving the citizen, meaning not only focusing on the technology but on the human factors, also of behavior, meaning you approach sustainability not only as a technological issue but also as an issue of lifestyle. Could you elaborate on that, Mrs. Lulu Li, also from Interactive Beijing?
Yes, so let's get back to the smart city topic again. Exactly like what Fei Jun have said, the technological approach is appropriate, but whoever is using it actually matters a lot, especially the mentality they have developed through such a long time, which led us till now having such a very very drastic, rather sudden crisis that we faced right now. I think to actually working on more on the ideological level is kind of our approach, and also stimulating the imagination different ways and different experiences of how to use technologies and to what kind of life we're aiming at. So that's basically what we call it. Like it's not an old collectivism anymore; it's new collectivism.
Yeah.
Because it is a collective crisis, so it requires a collective effort to make some change for it.
Yeah, and you're collaborating with Dutch partners. Could you shortly go into these collaborations with Neville Mars, who is not yet online? Technique, is Neville here?
I'm online.
Okay, I hear you. Thank you.
It's in the same vein as the topics were just mentioned. So finally, eco-cities are on the agenda, but it's very clear that this is indeed kind of a top-down approach. And to build them is actually relatively easy, but then to activate them, to have them filled with life is very hard. So the project we are working on in Beijing with Lulu and Fei Jun really examines exactly this issue. It investigates how 798 can become, which is sort of the most important creative hub of China, can become a leading role model for how to create these sort of culturally sensitive, activated creative centers that take over China. Is that coming through?
Yeah, that came through. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next guest is here in Germany, in Hanover, at the Holland Smart City House at the Metropolitan Solutions Fair 2014 at the Hannover Messe, Professor Frans Voogelaar. Frans, could you tell us something about your collaborations with Interactive Beijing and with Lei?
I've been going to China for quite some time. My first confrontation, a very interesting confrontation, was becoming a 111 professor in Wuhan. And then slowly we started exploring China. We came to Beijing. We were hosted by CAFA. Last year I received a very interesting notice from Fei Jun about air, and that all of a sudden got me very excited. I was working with my students at the Kunsthochschule Vermedien on a subject called crisis design, design beyond luxury, and these were exactly the topics we were looking for. And of course, it's clear we would not find them in Europe, but we would find them in China.
Yeah, and what do you find so exciting working in the Chinese urban acceleration moment we find today?
One thing is, of course, the people we work with, extremely open, extremely fast, Chinese time. Better? Yeah, sorry. What I find very interesting is the coming together of two situations. One is an unbelievable urban development. As Yang Lei mentioned, 300 million people, correct me if I'm wrong, will move to the cities in the next 15 years. At the same time, a technology is now available to, as it were, work on another level with the city, work on a media level, work on a smart level. And smart does not necessarily mean only technologically smart, but also involves eco, health, behavior, all these kind of aspects. And that, of course, I'm finding exactly in Beijing.
Yeah. Switch to Christine de Baan in Rotterdam. Hello, Christine.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello. Could you shortly introduce the platform you're working in, Dutch DFA, and present a bit its involvement in Chinese Dutch collaborations?
Yes, I will not dwell on Dutch DFA because actually it's a program that has now ended. It no longer exists. It used to be a platform. It's continuing in other ways, but it used to be a platform for collaboration and exchange in architecture, design, and media between the Netherlands and China, and Netherlands also some other countries. In that context, we participated several times in Beijing Design Week, and the first time actually we had filled a building with projects, and it was called Smart Cities, Healthy Cities. And the projects ranged from presentations of long-term integrated planning approach from Dutch architects and planners, to also solutions for having plants with new kinds of lighting, having sort of urban farming within the city. So very small and smart and very large long-term. I think continuing on what Yang Lei said, one of the most interesting aspects of this whole urbanization issue addressing China at the moment is that I think Chinese government needs to find a new balance between city and countryside, as much in planning as in the way they invest in urbanization and the way they have their legal, because let's say the legal requirements. Now it's very strictly separated. And I think one of the things that is needed is to find a new balance between these two, between this immense urbanization and what is left of the countryside. And in that sense, I think cities need to become smart, not only technological, but also in understanding. And I think that is something the Dutch might bring in, how to balance, let's say, urban and nature in a way.
And we understood that you're involved in Beijing Design Week 2014. And what are your plans there? How will you address these issues from the design point of view? Well,
most of the people who will be involved in that are actually sitting on the other side of the Skype call. And the assignment given to me by Anushka and our colleagues was more how to bring together these different stories in a larger narrative and also see how you can continue them in the years beyond, so that it's not only an involvement in Beijing Design Week, but also on a more long-term basis on other platforms and in other contexts. Because the narrative, of course, of sustainable urbanization is larger than just this one moment in time during Beijing Design Week, as all the speakers at the table have just demonstrated.
Yeah.
So that is more what I'm asked to think about.
Yeah.
We will now switch to Anushka, who's enabling this collaboration, somehow the joint between the Rotterdam Skype window and the Beijing Skype window. You're based in Beijing, you're representative of the Dutch state there. What is your point of view to these themes from this multiple perspective?
Well, I mean, basically, what our role within this is to be a connector and to find ways of connecting all these parties to Chinese initiatives and activities that are here, and to see where like Dutch expertise has a possibility for adding value to the Chinese context, basically. Of course, the urban issues are vast and grand and great in China at the moment. So we are trying. I mean, of course, it's a focus within our work in the embassy as well. Not only within our department, but we're slowly starting to set up more of a work group where we interact with other departments in our embassy. For instance, the environment department, water, science and technology, etc. To also synergize our work, which is then to not only cover the cultural sector or that aspect of it, but also the actual, even also economic aspects.
Thank you. We'll now switch back after being in Beijing, in Shanghai, back in Beijing, in Rotterdam, back in Beijing, back to Germany, in Hanover, at the Hannover Messe house, Holland Smart City House at the Metropolitan Solutions Fair. Frans, what do you think is the possibility of this synergy, of this Dutch-Chinese synergy, if you would also add the German factor in it?
I work in Germany. I've left Holland quite some time ago. So my interest is also very much connecting Germany, for example, my students, our school, to China. I think there's an incredible potential in combining more European forces. I think the Dutch, of course, are doing a wonderful job. I mean, second to none, I would say, but the others, for example, in this case, our public is also German, could learn from the Dutch. So I'm interested in the following. What can this development in creative industry and the connection to China, of course with the Chinese partners, what can the Germans learn from this? What could be good ideas? Sorry, I hear Christine, you didn't hear me. The question is very simple. How could we combine, because we have a German audience, what can we learn from the Dutch, from their approach? For example, Christine, you have set up, parallel to nothing else, an organization, DFA. What would be your advice, for example, to the German policymakers, cultural policymakers?
I think my main advice would be build long-term relationships and build them based on the match of demand in China and what Germans can bring to the table. Like Anushka already said, don't go for sort of quick solutions or quick wins, but take a long-term and serious approach, build partnerships based on an equal exchange of knowledge, and let's say also the recognition that both parties should take something from that exchange.
Thank you very much. This was the closing statement.
Sorry it's so short.
Sorry for so short, but there's a very, very tense program going on, and we're very happy having our Chinese guests here at the Dutch pavilion at the International Industry Innovation Fair with the focus Metropolitan Solutions in Hanover, Germany. Thank you very much for participating at this discussion.
Yes. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.